Hello guys, welcome to this channel, and in this video we're going to be learning how to create this landing page. So without much further ado, let's get started. So to make sure everyone's on the same page, this is an empty folder opened in Visual Studio Code. To get started, first let's download our image. Go over to pixels.com where you can get free images. So you search for city. In this city, you can choose any image you want. For me, I'll go with this one right over here. So this is the image I'll be using for the design. So you download it, and after downloading, you go over to the file and then you drag and then paste it right over here in this section. You paste it over here. So the image should appear in your Visual Studio Code. So let's close this. And let's rename this file to PG. So now let's create our index.html file. Index.html file is the first file you should create for your website. Every website needs an index.html file. And now let's type in an exclamation mark, and then using the MS abbreviation, it should give us this HTML template right here. First of all, let's run our HTML file to see the output. So using the live server extension, this live server extension, we can simply click on this go live, and then it will run our website to see the output. So here it is. It's a blank website because we have nothing in it, and then the website title has this document. So first of all, let's change this title to our preference. So let's change. So here is the title inside the head element. So this is the head element right here. In HTML, most elements have an opening tag and then a closing tag. So the closing tag has the difference between the opening tag and then the closing tag is the closing tag has a / and then the name. So you can see this / right over here. So the closing tag has a / and then the opening tag has no /. Let's change the title to landing page. Let's save, and then see the title has changed to landing page. Next, inside our body elements, so this is the opening tag, the closing tag. So inside our body element, we create a div, and the div is a container used for holding other elements. So let's create a div. Let's give it a class of main. Inside this main, let's create another div. Let's give it a class of navbar, and then let's create another div inside the main. Let's give it a class of content. So now we create our CSS file. So let's create our CSS file. We click on this button, which is new file. Let's call it style.css. And once you create the file, you must always provide a link to the file inside the head element. So inside the head element, you create a link. The href would be the name of the file, which is style.css, and this one stands for the type of file, which is style sheet. So CSS stands for cascading style sheet. So This stands for the type of file. Let's say style.css. Let's save that. Let's open our CSS file, and first of all, let's give it a root styling. So the asterisk means that styling for the root. So every element would have this same style inside this asterisk. It means that it means it is going to style all the elements of the website, all the elements of the web page. So let's give it a margin of 0 pixels. Margin is the white space around an element. Let's give it a margin of 0 pixels, a padding of 0 pixels. And padding is the white space inside an element. And let's set the font family of the website. So the font family is used to select the font type. Let's simply set it to sans serif and let's save. And in order to style this main class right here, first you type in a dot and then the name of the class, which is main. And let's give it a width of 100 view width, so which means it should take 100% of the screen. Whatever the screen size is, it should take 100% of it. Then the height of 100 view height, so which also means 100% of the screen size. And let's give it a border in order to visualize our div. 1% solid, 1 pixels solid, and the color of red. So let's say, so in the output we see there's this extra space around it, so it means that the padding and the borders are not included in the width. In order to include the padding and then the border to the width, we need to set the box sizing to border box, and that should fix the issue. You can see there's this red line around the screen, which is our main div. Can increase the size of the border to, let's say, 2 pixels. See, here is the red line surrounding the screen. So now let's style our navbar class. So we say dot navbar. Let's set the width to 100%, which means 100% of its parent element, and then the parent element is the main, which has a width of 100 view height. So whatever the width of its parent, it should take 100% of it, and then the height of 20%. So which means it should take 20% of its parent element. So let's give it a border in order to visualize it and see how it is, and then the space it would take. So solid, and let's give it a color of green. So we can see our navbar div right here. And now the final one, which is the content, let's give it a width of 100% as well, and then a height of 80%. Let's give it a border of 2 pixels solid and then blue. So we can also see our content right here. So now let's start by adding our background image. So in order to add our background image, since the main div right here is the container of all the elements, so our background should be added to the main class. So in order to add a background image, we set the background image to URL, and then you type in the location of your image. It can be an image from the web, but here we are going to be using a downloaded image. So you type in your quotation marks and then a dot forward slash, which means you should access the content in the same directory or folder. So dot forward slash and then bg dot jpg. So that is our image. And the next thing we need to do is, so now let's see the output. So you can see our image is right here, but the image is not the way it should be. So the next thing we do is we set the background position, and let's set it to center. Let's see the output. So now the image has been centered, but it looks like the image is zoomed in. So the next thing we do is we set the background size. The background size, we set it to cover. First, let's set it to contain to see how it would look like. And this is the image when it's set to contain. And one thing you can notice is the image is repeating. So we have one image here, then the other image, then the other image. So the image is repeating itself. So in order to fix this issue, we set the background repeat. We set it to no repeat. Control S to save, and let's see the output. So the image is not repeating, but the image is leaving this white space here and over here. But we want the image to cover their entire div. So in that case, we set the background size to cover, which means it should cover their entire div. So let's save that and let's see the output. So you can see the image is covering the entire div. So let's remove the border we put here of the main class. So let's remove the border. Let's save. Let's see. So the border has been removed. So now the next thing we do is create the element of the nav bar. So the element of the nav bar, it has the logo, the navigation items, and then the get started button. So the logo, let's use an H2 element, which stands for heading 2. So there are 6 heading elements, which is H1, H2, H3 through to H6. H1 heading is the largest of all, and then H6 is the smallest of them all. So with the H2 element, let's type in our logo, and for this, so you can use a logo here, but for this, I'll be using the H2 element, which I'll type in Createch Digital. And then the next thing we do is we create our navigation items. So our navigation items, we can use a list. So list in HTML, there are 2 types of list. We have the ordered list and then the unordered list. So for the unordered list, you type in UL, which stands for unordered list. So which has the opening tag and then the closing tag. So inside this unordered list, we create our list items. And our list items is created with the list element, which stands for LI. And then we have our opening tag and then the closing tag. So inside our list element, we create our list item. And since there are navigation items, there should be links to other web pages, other parts of the website. So in order to create a link, we use the anchor element, which is just an A. So an A right here. So we have the A, and then inside the opening tag, we have the href, which should be the URL you want your link to take you to. So for this, let's set it blank, so nothing, and then the list, and then the name of our link. So the name of our link should be between the opening tag and then the closing tag. For this, let's type in HOME, home. So let's copy this list item and let's paste it. Let's paste it the third time. Let's change this one to explore. Let's change this one to contact. So right now we have two elements inside our navbar. So the third element will be our button. So we simply create our button by using the button element, which is button. And then we type in the name of our button, which should be get started. Let's save, Control S, and let's see the output. Here we have it. You can see the created digital right here. You can see the home, explore, the contact, and button. But now we want them to be in the horizontal form. And in order to achieve this, we use the CSS. So we go over to our CSS. Inside our navbar class, we set the display to flex. So the flex property is used to set the flexible length of an element. So we set the display to flex, and let's save that. And then let's set the flex direction. So the flex direction will only work if the display of an element is flex. Let's set the flex direction to row because we want it to be in a horizontal form. Control S to save, and let's see the output. If you can see, it is in the row form. We have created here, we have the links right here, and then our button. So the next thing we do is we set the justify content. The justify content is how the element should be arranged. Let's set it to space between, so which would create a space between each element from the other. So as we can see, there's a space between the created digitals and then the link element, and then between the link and then the button. So the next thing we do is we align the items. So let's align the items in the center so they are aligned horizontally. So we have it here, so they are all aligned horizontally. So the next thing we do is we style our links. So for the link, we need to use the anchor element right here. So we need to style the anchor element, which is the A, and then so in order to style an element, you type in the name of the element and then the curly brackets. So the first thing we do is we set the text decoration because we do not want any text decoration. We set the text decoration. So the text decoration is the underline right here. So let's remove the underline. So we set the text decoration to none, and that should remove the underline. So the underline has been removed. And then as we can see, there's this bulletin right here. So this bulletin is part of the unordered list. So in order to remove that, we style the unordered list. And for that, we set the list style. Let's set it to none. We should remove all styles of the list. And let's set the text color or the font color. So let's set color. Let's set it to white. And let's also increase the font size. Let's set it to 32 pixels. Let's see the output now. And see there's home, explore, contact. So we have everything the way it is, but we do not want our list element to be in a vertical form. So let's change that to horizontal. So in order to set them in the horizontal way, we style our li elements. So which should be li curly bracket, and let's set the display to inline. So which means it should display each element in line with the other. So let's see our output, and as you can see, it is here displaying inline. And in order to give it a space around each element, we use the margin property. So we set the margin to 0 pixels for the top and then the bottom, and then 35 pixels for the left and then the right. So let's save that and see the output. And here we have it. So there's a space between here and then a space between here. So the next thing we do is let's set the color of this text right here. So the text was put in an H2 element. So we can say H2 and then color. And let's set it to white. So we save that and we have it here. So the color has been changed to white. So now let's style the button as well. So for the button, we say button element, and then we say let's give it a padding. So the padding is the white space inside the element. So let's give it a padding of 15 pixels for top and then the bottom, and then 20 pixels for left and right. And let's give it a margin of 10 pixels, and then let's remove that. So let's save this for now and see the output. So we have it here. So the next thing we should do is remove this button. So the next thing we should do is remove this gray background. So in order to remove that, we set the background to none. We should remove that gray color. So what we can do next is the border radius. So the border radius gives it a curly edges. Let's set the border radius to 15 pixels, and let's set the font color to white. And the next thing we need to do is set the font size as well. Let's increase the font size to 20 pixels. Let's save and see the output. So here we have it. So you can see it is right here. So the next thing I think we should do is change the border color. So let's set the border to 1 pixel solid in the color of white. So for this is the type of border. So we can change it to dashed or anything else we want. So we can say dashed and then the color of white. So this should give it a dashed border. So we see it right here. So it gives this dashed border right here. But for now, let's use the solid. here. So the next thing is, let's give the nav items and the button some hover effect. So the hover effect are changes that should be done on the element when the mouse pointer moves over it. So the first hover effect we do is the anchor element, which is the links. So let's say A and then hover. So with the hover effect, let's set the color to red, and let's set the transition. So transition is the time it should take for the animation to play out. So let's set the transition to 0.1 seconds. And let's also give the button a hover effect. So button. And for the hover effect, let's set the color, which is the font color. Let's set it to red. Let's set the border to red as well. And then red. Solid. And let's set the transition here to transition. Let's give it 0.3 seconds. So let's see the output. So we hover over it, the color changes. Same thing with the links. So that will be it for the navbar. The next thing we need to do is create the content right over here. So we can remove the border around the navbar, which is the green border right here. So let's remove this border. Let's save, see the output. So the border has been removed. So before we go over to the content, let's give this text right here, this logo, a margin so that it would have some white space around it. So that is the H2 elements. So in the H2 element, let's also give it a margin of 10 pixels. We should give it a white space around it. So yeah, there we have it. So now we move on to the content section. So for the content section, let's go over to the index.html file, and inside the content div, let's create another div with the class of content items. So you can say div class content items. So if your class name has two different words, they should be combined with a hyphen. If there's no hyphen like this, the HTML file or the website would consider these two as separate classes. So it would consider this as a content class and then an items class. But we want this to be a one word, so we separate it with a hyphen. So now inside this content items, let's give it an h2 element again of explore the world. Explore the world. And let's see the output. So we have it over here, explore the world. And this has a white color because we are already styling it over here, which is h2. So it means that every h2 element inside the index.html, it would give us this style. But there are other ways to select a specific element. For example, we could have selected only this h2 element with a CSS syntax, but for now, let's use this syntax. And then the next thing is we do a button. Let's say get started, which would also have the same styling as the button before it, this button. So let's save and let's see the output. So we have it here. The button also has the same style, and then the text also has the same style. So we want these two to be in the center. So we want it to be in the center. So what we must do is inside the content, we set the display to flex, and then we justify our content to the center, and then we align it to the center. Let's save that. Let's see the output. So we have it here in the center, but the explore world and then the button are not aligned at the center perfectly. So for that, we select the content items because that is the div that contains those two elements. Set the styling of the content items. So we can say let's also set the display to flex, and let's say justify content, let's say center, and then align items to the center. Let's see the output, but now it has changed to the horizontal form, which we do not want. So let's change it, the flex direction to colon, which should put it in the vertical direction. So let's save, see the output, and there we have it. It has been changed to the vertical direction. So then now let's remove the blue border around the content. Remove it, and here we have it. We have our landing page. So that would be it for this tutorial. If you have any questions, leave it in the comment section below. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned for more.